the program. Joining us again to discuss the history and the relevance of the current Asia-Africa conference in Indonesia is Leo Yufa from Beijing. He is the former vice president at the China Institute of International Studies. Yusuf Wanandi, a senior fellow and co-founder of the Center for Strategic and International Studies. He joins us from Jakarta. We also have William Gumede, an associate professor at the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa. He joins us from Johannesburg. And here with me in the studio in Washington, D.C. is Amitav Acharya, a professor of international relations at American University and author of the book, The End of American World Order. Thanks again to all of you for being with us. Yusuf, I'm going to go back to you. We just heard Amitav talk to us about the Bandung spirit. What are the sort of conditions that are embodied in that spirit? What does it mean?
Well, the spirit was really, of course, at that time for the independence of the developing part of the world after colonialism. And that is, of course, a very important one. And it's still, of course, symbolically one of the items on the agenda. But I have to stress here that we are not looking only for a remembrance of what happened. What we are looking here is really to do something for the future in a much more permanent situation and permanent mode. And that's why we would like to see some permanent institutions to be established to continue this struggle for much more equitable, of course, distribution of the economy in the future. And that's why we are looking forward, of course, in this case, not only to have the South-South cooperation increased and established in a much better, way than before, but we also would like to create this cooperation together with the developer. There is no actually plans to cut us off from the industrialized nations, and they are part, of course, of the solution, and as we are going to be. So therefore, let me stress here that we have, in this globalized world, the developing part should cooperate with everybody, including the industrialized nations, to find the solutions, as has been said, on climate change, on the problem of population, on the problem of food, on the problem of energy, on the problem of terrorism. No doubt about that. So I would like to just to stress here, this is not a confrontative kind of an actually commemoration.
Liu Yufa, as we look at what Yusuf was just talking about, a more equal distribution of resources, the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, he has already said that China is ready to cooperate with interested countries through some of its own initiatives, the Belt Initiative, the Road Initiative, etc. What are those initiatives, and how does it fit into a multilateral forum like the Bandung Spirit?
Well, I think this would be a very good platform for Chinese leader, President Xi Jinping, to elaborate the concrete operational projects and programs vis-a-vis common development and common security. And, for example, China has recently put forward the initiative of One Belt, One Road, AIIB, and the BRICS Banks and Silk Road Foundation. These are the initiatives which would help to promote the mutual connectivity in terms of trade, investment, industrial cooperation, regional governance, and regional cooperation in terms of common security. More importantly, China is now standing ready to promote, in conjunction with all the countries in Africa and Asia, in terms of promoting the regional integration. Back to you.
Amitav, what is your assessment of Asian investment in Africa? You've worked in Africa, you've taught at African universities in South Africa. Asian investment in Africa is not without its critics. But what is the big picture?
Yes, I think the most common criticism, although I must say that this criticism comes more from the West than from the Africans, that Chinese investments are basically without any condition. They support authoritarianism. They lead to exploitation of resources. Now, I am skeptical of that because the West has done exactly the same thing and even worse for hundreds of years. And I think the Chinese investments are generally welcome by the Africans, and they have helped African countries. And Indian participation in African economy is also welcome. And I think this is a good example of South-South cooperation. And if the Bandung Anniversary Conference promotes this kind of links more, then it will be a very positive outcome. One thing I would warn, though, a lot of the Chinese and Indian sort of investment and economic activity is between China and Africa, between India and Africa. They're not multilateral. Right. So that creates a bit of concern. There will be some competition among these Asian countries in Africa. So there is a need there for the Bandung is a multilateral forum. And if some of the aid that China and India provides, or investment for that matter, provide Africa can be multilateralized, maybe in the form of the kind of institution that Pak Wanandi is talking about, that will be a very positive outcome because otherwise it's a China, Africa, India, Africa, Brazil, Africa kind of a deal.
Yusuf, let's look at some of the more practical proposals that might be on the table at this conference. One of the things they're going to be looking at is peacekeeping efforts. Asia is involved in this in very many ways in many countries around the world. They want to promote dialogue. They want to ensure what has come to be known as preventative diplomacy. What kind of progress can we see on this?
Well, I think it will be a very good opportunity, you know, to be able to propagate this idea of reaching out to the others, of creating, you know, the possibility that we can cooperate. And China, actually, to her credit, has really, you know, give a new approach to all what she intended to do with the Silk Road, with the One Belt, and with the bank, and so forth. So I think, you know, this type of soft power implementation is a very important part in the effort to get the whole cooperation of the South-South cooperation of the development of this part together with the North, actually, of course, you know, a real push and also more continuity in the future, as Amitabh said.
Liu Yufa, is this just about soft power, or are countries like China looking at some very hard power as well? We know that they want changes at major multilateral organizations like the United Nations. They want a more just way of their participation in these organizations. They want things to be more rational. So will China be pushing for developing countries to have a bigger role in places like the UN?
Definitely. When the Bandung conference was held, the countries in Asia and Africa are trying very desperately for national independence or national liberation. And when they became independent, then they had to accept all the game rules resultant from the Bretton Woods system, which were not fair to them as a latecomer. Of course, now the game rules have to be changed a little bit in line with the status that China and many India and South Africa, Brazil, and many other developing countries are growing rapidly. So the developing countries have to join hands to seek the joint platform to push for the reform of the existing political, economic, governance systems. That is one thing. And secondly, they have to join hands to push for the new agendas in terms of global development, global peace, and global cooperation, so to speak. Back to you.
Right. William Gumede, this is also a very big issue for South Africa. We know that the South African International Relations Minister, who's going to be at this conference, she said before the conference started, we as Asia and Africa have a unique opportunity to ensure that the United Nations is fundamentally reformed and representative of the new global reality of today. As she called it, a better world is within reach. So what kind of initiative would South Africa like to see in this respect?
I mean, the key challenge really is because, you know, this is really, at this time in our history, is an opportunity for African countries, South Africa, other African countries, really, to rewrite the global rules. I mean, if you think about it, 60 years ago, I mean, Africans had to join, these newly independent African countries had to join the rules already existing. This is the opportunity now, to rewrite the rules to such an extent that it's fair to them. And that really is the crucial moment. But I also wanted to talk about something else also related to it, is that the challenge for many African countries as they go now to the conference is also to strike deals, better deals with other Asian countries, because, we may sit with a situation where most African countries only trade, say, with India and with China, but that won't be a good situation. What they now need to do, and they will have a platform, is to use this platform to diversify their trade also with developing countries. Because if you think about it, the last 60 years for African countries, often the mistake that many African countries made is they were always linked to one big trading partner, where it was in the West and so on. So going into the future and going to the Bandung conference, I think African leaders and African countries must focus on striking other kinds of deals also.